Nearly a decade ago, Hotstar, Netflix, and Amazon Prime entered the scene, and they came in as the anti TV. No fixed showtimes, no endless ad breaks, no reruns you had to sit through just because nothing else was on. You see, for the first time, we were in control. TV suddenly became personal, it became on demand, and best of all, it was ad free. It really felt like there was no going back.
For a few years, things went well. These streaming platforms managed to garner viewers in some of the farthest reaches of the country. We were flooded with a seemingly never ending stream of quality content films, television shows, live sports. It was the average couch potato's dream come true.
But now that shine is wearing off, something seems to have shifted. Subscriber growth is stalling, and that is making streaming platforms nervous, really nervous. So, what are they doing? Well, this may surprise you. They are bringing back the ads. After Disney Plus Hotstar, Amazon Prime Video is the latest to jump into India's ad supported streaming game, which industry insiders call AVOD, or Ad Supported Video on Demand. Turns out even Netflix is toying with the idea of introducing ad supported tiers here in India, just like it's doing in a few other markets. In other words, OTT is starting to look a lot more like the very thing it was supposed to replace.
So, what happened? Have we come full circle, or is this just the natural evolution of an industry that is growing up? Well, to find out, Rahil and I spoke to Swati Mohan, the former head of marketing at Netflix India. Swati is a seasoned marketing and business leader with more than 2 decades of experience in media, entertainment, technology, and consumer brands, and has held top leadership positions at National Geographic Channel and Group M.
Today, as the streaming world pivots from subscriptions to ads, Swati joins us to unpack what that means. And I don't just mean for the industry, but also for all of us as viewers. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Snigdha Sharma, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Rahel Philippos and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Friday, the 23rd of May.
Hi, Swati. Welcome to Daybreak. I think there are very few people better placed to comment on this particular development than you. You were the head of marketing at Netflix, of course, right when it launched in India and through its, golden years, the OTT on steroids phase. You've had, in many ways, ringside seats to India's OTT story. So when you hear the news of Amazon introducing ads, what was your initial reaction?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Great topic. And of course, been a great fan of Daybreak and the Ken. So, really excited to be here. The topic of pricing, tiering, AVOD, SVOD has always been sort of, interesting and intriguing to me. And it remains so even after I've left that space. So to your question, my first reaction, essential, inevitable, somewhere important that it happened and an indication of, a bunch of things really, right? At one level, it's a very bold step by Amazon Prime Video. No consumer will, instinctively say, oh my God, all right, I'll pay more for the same thing that I was getting all this while. But at the same time, so bold enough to say that, look, I've already evaluated the fact that I have to invest in content. I want to make sure that that quality of my content remains untouched. You all have loved it. You've also been continued subscribers. So guess what? There are two sets of people. I know a bunch of you are price sensitive, so I'm going to keep the price the same for you, but you're going to get some ads. And then there's another set of people saying, I don't want the ads. I'm absolutely okay to pay. So they've obviously evaluated that there are these two sets, and I am going to be able to cater to both a value sensitive consumer as well as a price sensitive consumer. The third part is, hey, I'm opening my doors to a set of advertisers who actually I kind of know because of my Amazon business. And at the other end, there are advertisers who wanted to be part of the video game for so long. They've already experienced experienced it on other platforms in some form or the other. And now this discerning audience who is binging all the time, etc. It's more of a series game really, with our SVOD market specifically. They will be able to get a piece of that, not just in India, imagine in their 200 million plus base as well. So I think all in all, they're doing a bunch of things. Depending who you speak to, you're going to get a different reaction.
Got it. Swati, the next question is to do with how it almost seems like we're going back to the times of television ads, right? Because when OTT platforms, early on when they came into the picture, they came into the market, it was almost like an antithesis to television, right? But now it seems like we're going back to the TV model. So can you talk a little bit about the evolution of OTT that you've seen over the past decade almost, and all the different phases of growth, and what phase of growth are we in right now?
Right. No, it's a great question, right? And again, as I said, depends on who you ask, the reaction will be different. I think if I step back and look at the phases, I would say in a category that's been just about a decade old. Now, remember, a decade is not that long a period of time to say, hey, this is the only playbook that will work, right?
Right.
Everyone's kind of correcting themselves. It, sort of lays a new correction and benchmark for the rest of the category to price and, sort of sell, etc. So in this case, I would say let's step back. Let's go back into early years of OTT. There was, a lot of ambition, positivity. There was this individuality of, I can watch it on my mobile. I'm away from the sas bahu of it all when it comes to the kind of content I'm able to watch. I'm able to partake in, social conversations globally on, these global series like a Stranger Things, etc. that are cult following, right? I'm part of that community. So there was that phase, right? High investment in content and marketing. But of course, remember, content takes a few years to really come alive. Sometimes it takes up to years, right?
Yeah.
Now, phase two was, you mentioned the words steroids earlier, Rahel. So let's stick with that and call it the steroid phase, which was the phase of the pandemic. The people who were watching television, which at that time, remember, was continuing to be this ever growing, it still is growing television industry now, as a share of things might have declined in share, but overall it
Mhm.
was still the largest pie of media and entertainment was television. And those guys did not have anything else to watch. They
Yeah.
were used to new content every day and they had no option. They were almost forced into this habit and behavior. And that created this sort of steroid like behavior on the growth that everyone was experiencing. We had like a fast track of behavior change, which would have ideally taken a lot more number of years, right? It kind of got, there was a shortcut that sort of happened. I hate to call the pandemic phase that, but it was
Yeah.
definitely a phase which forced a behavior of watching something connected to the internet or the Wi-Fi on your devices or in your home with your family, which had not happened before in India.
It
So
was kind of
that's
a
what happened.
phase. It was kind of a phase that was driven more by circumstance than strategy, right? But it couldn't have come at a better time for
Absolutely.
OTTs.
Absolutely. And remember, people discovered content, right? It may have been 6 years old, but for them it was new, right? They were discovering a lot of content that they hadn't seen. Dubbing strategies were at an all-time high at that time, saying, hey, let me just cater to different languages, etc. It
Mm.
coincided with a lot of stuff that was, already had been shot but was in post. So there was new content also happening. A lot of the big franchises had subsequent seasons coming out during the pandemic. And now the third phase, which I believe that we are in, is about this normalization of not the
Mm.
same rate of growth. Watch time has come down. People have gone back to work a couple of years ago at least. And now the question arises of, okay, so now how do we sustain that growth? How do we get back to that? How do we make sure that while, there's always a correlation between watch time and retention, typically, right? And how do we make sure that people stay on, they don't find it as too much of a hit? Because while some people, and it's probably the likes of you and me who are like, that's fine, let it continue, no problem. But a lot of people are sort of sensitive to, hey, I haven't found anything worth watching. Why do I still have this subscription?
Right.
right? And when you don't have the time, you ask yourself this question a lot. And so you may have noticed in the third phase, a lot of this experimentation on pricing, bundling, tiering has happened across the top platforms, not just one. Prime Video is doing it now, right? But the others, Netflix experimented with price. Geo and Disney has come together in that same phase. If you remember, HBO wanted to launch, has not been able to launch. A lot of things happened in this normalization phase, and I think we're still there trying to figure out. It is somewhere an indication that when it comes to the playbook that existed maybe a few years ago, that does need a relook at some level.
Yeah. Swati, about, just going back to the different phases that you spoke about, right? Can we also talk about how different platforms developed content, in all these different phases?
Yeah, great question. I think it's very very closely linked to anyone's ambition in the market and the results they were seeing, right? So initially, if you recall, the platforms that had broadcaster backing was doing catch up TV, right? It was a free service, it was advertiser supported, and this was sort of a way to get the ad share from the YouTubes of the world or the Metas of the world, because a lot of the advertising dollars were going there. And people realized, like, even the advertisers and the marketers were saying that, hey, my consumers on the mobile, man, right? And you're not giving me an option. And so there was a very easy switch to say, hey, you know what? I'll give you television and digital now, right? And so you get a sort of different audience, etc. I can cater to more advertisers. I can bundle them together to cater to both. That was that phase. That was the first phase. Then came original content, live sports, and dependent on where your pocket was and how deep your pocket was, it was the second phase was all about originals. It was all about live sports. It was all about post theatrical releases.
Right.
As you recall, in that phase, you had a lot of the lead platforms bringing you theatrical releases within 8 weeks,
Right.
which again sort of maybe changed the behavior of people who wanted to do this first day, first show of it all, right? Because they said,
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I'll just watch it when it comes into, in my living room, no problem.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. And of course, there was this whole regional play. People realized, and they were drawing a lot of, I think, references from even a YouTube, where there was so many examples saying people are watching in their in their local language. If you want a service to survive, you need to be able to cater to multi-generational homes, which often have a person speaking in a different language, as well as being able to cater to something a kid wants to watch. So this, the content strategy was evolving based on the learning that they were getting from households that were continuing to watch. What were the triggers of retention? And a lot of these were that returning series, talent, Bollywood, even movies from down south, which was such a play for some of the platforms, and a winning strategy, if you ask me, right? Because the content that's been coming out of there has been phenomenal.
True.
And so dubbing, again, was a major thing to say that, hey, let me at least make it accessible. And today, language, if you ask me, has democratized it across the world. People are watching Korean shows, Turkish shows, right? So language is becoming secondary to just the drama and the storyline that's at play, right? We're
Yeah.
getting very used to reading our shows as well as watching. Third phase now was about, hey, I'm very confident in the product that I have. I've seen how much they love it in terms of the fandom. I've seen the watch time. I've seen the global resonance of all this content. Now let me try and make sure that more and more people are able to access this in terms of either newer audiences at a lower price point, or in the case of Amazon Prime Video, advertisers, right? So I think people are saying, what's my next level of growth? Is it a wider, deeper tier 2, 3 audience? Or is it now, an advertiser who can provide an additional revenue stream for me? In the case of Prime Video, they already have a stack that they can just optimize across. But we can speak about that a little bit later.
Or could it also be a combination of both, Swati?
A combination of which two would you mean?
You mean like advertisers and also, the other point that you mentioned, right?
So I think in the case of Prime Video, as I said, like I'm generally speaking about all platforms, it's about what is the next horizon of growth, right? What's that consumer set? I can go wider by having a different price point. I can bundle with existing telcos out there that have already got a sense of loyalty with customers and reduce my friction. Or I can also create growth. It depends on what you define as growth. Is it revenue? Is it subs? Is it profitability? And I think everyone has a different definition of it, and that's all right. We can sit back and, unfortunately television has ingrained in us the fact that growth means number of people,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's where this is a little bit different, and it's an important reminder for anyone assessing or judging decisions that are made by OTT platforms. It's a very different metric, and it differs from company to company.
I think it would be a good time to kind of take a step back and look at what the data shows us as well, right? So we actually had a
Yeah.
look at the Ormax OTT audience report for 2024, and we found that while video streaming in India currently stands at about close to 550 million people, and that number is consistently growing, what isn't growing as quickly is the active paid subscriptions, right? We find that those have stagnated at around 100 million. That was last year. I'm sure the numbers increased just a little bit. As of this year, we'll have to wait for this year's edition of the Ormax OTT audience report. But essentially, in a nutshell, it's exactly what you were saying, right, Swati? It's OTT penetration seems to be growing, but the number of people who are willing to purchase a subscription on these platforms seems to be stagnating, and therefore, are we seem to be in a situation where streaming platforms now have to kind of reinvent their business models to an extent. I'm curious to know what is that extent, right? Like, how far are they going to go?
With every company, it's different. The North Stars can be different. Let's have a look. Let's compare Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, for example. Um, Netflix does not have an annual plan, right? It does not have a membership that offers, delivery and music, etc. It doesn't have any of that. It has a monthly plan. It is a pure play content business that is running on monthly subscription revenues. And hence their obsession is about making sure that our customer keeps subscribing to the platform, right? Prime Video has an annual plan, it has a quarterly plan, it has a monthly plan also. And I would assume, based on whatever numbers I recall, I would assume about 75 to 80% of Prime Video members are also Prime members, and hence have an annual plan, because it is like, initially, of course, it's always been a top up on their utility service of delivery of e-commerce, right? So these are two very, very different businesses. And by the way, kudos to them. And specifically in India, they have managed to make sure that Prime Video is also a standalone business, that a lot of people who come for Prime actually value the Prime Video service a lot more than others, right? So that's a very unique thing that I recall happening for India specifically, because their content has been phenomenal, right? So I think those are the two different things. Now, the extent, if we go deep into Prime a little bit more, so what they're saying is, I could be a person who's saying, hey, I've been paying $14.99. I've been paying it. Would I pay it from my Prime only membership if it didn't have Prime Video? I think a lot of us would say yes, right? Because that's an advantage. That's something now, it's habitual. I can't live without it. So at some level, I could argue that, hey, I've been getting this free all this while. Right? So it's how someone rationalizes it when they see value in something deeply. So now what's happening is, we're saying in the same service, right? There is a strategy here. If we really analyze it, saying $14.99, I'm going to give you the same service, but it's going to have ads, right? And I referred earlier to the price sensitive person saying, don't want to lose out, let me continue, right? Because I value this in my life, and nobody will take a move like this, by the way, if they hadn't got the confidence in the market, in their consumer, in their behavior. And in the case of Amazon Prime, they've actually had other markets do this already. So they've already got those learnings, right? And then comes that other value conscious consumer saying, hey, you know what? I just don't want ads anymore. I can't deal with them. I've just had years of not having them. And I don't mind paying the $6.99 more per year, mind you. Right? So I'm okay with that. And so the extent here to a consumer, they're saying, it's actually a retention, acquisition, price hike, revenue, it's all in one. And I think somewhere it seems like it's muddled, but they have obviously, to each specific consumer, it's going to appear differently.
I also want to talk a little bit about what you mentioned, Swati, right? Like Prime has this e-commerce platform, and that, of course, is a huge, unfair advantage that it has, right? How do you see it? Do you see these two converging at some point now that it's going to be running ads? How do you picture it happening in the future?
No, I think that is the advantage, and they have had the AMS platform is one of the most sophisticated advertising ad tech tools that we have out there, right? So the it is insane the amount of data, behavioral insights, recommendations that they offer people who have sort of listed their products on the Amazon e-com platform. Now, imagine being able to go to an advertiser, and imagine they already have this, they have the tech stack, they have the advertiser network, and they have this, they have 200 million of video subscribers. So you can go from, product discovery, brand building to product discovery to consideration to purchase all in one universe, right? It may not happen
Right.
all at the same time, but imagine the offering to the advertiser is something that, not many people can really offer.
Yeah. And Swati, if you had to compare this, okay, Prime has this Amazon, right? And then you have Geo with its telecom bundle, right? Like,
Yeah.
can you compare the two?
Well, it's different. I think the similarity will be in the fact that it is all, there's a element of convergence that's happening when it comes to device or connectivity, right? That's the geo thing, right? So I can give you a broadband connection, and I can give you some, I can bundle some OTT subscriptions with that. I can bundle it with your telco plan. I can also, sort of preload it into some geo phones if you take my telco service. So there is a lot that can be done over there in terms of bundling. But the advertiser focus is what I'm referring to right
Yeah.
now, right? So I
Yeah.
think, I can't comment on, how that, the entire PNL over there looks like. And, I'm sure they're able to, help each other out meaningfully, which is why, that is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. And but Amazon is equally a force in a very unique and different way,
Yeah.
right? So while we may call it an unfair advantage that Prime Video has, Geo equally has an unfair advantage in being
Mm-hmm.
able to have the largest mobile network in the country.
That's exactly it, right, Swati? Amazon is like really uniquely placed in the sense that, like you said, it has the tech stack. It's kind of a gold mine for advertisers. In addition to that, of course, we spoke about India and the price sensitive customer. My question then is not why is it doing it now? Rather, why did it take this long to get to, introducing AWOD, right? Wasn't it a
Yeah.
kind of wait? Couldn't they have done it a lot earlier? Why now?
The when is, in my opinion, when I teach go to market strategies to many founders, everyone ends up focusing on the why, what, how.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the when is the most important question in the strategy that people forget, because everyone wants to do everything all at once. I think retrospectively, it may seem like this was just such an obvious thing, but imagine in a world where there was an AVOD service that everybody else had, which
Mm.
was free, no subscription paid, only AVOD. That's not what Prime Video is doing. They're still charging a subscription fee,
Right.
right? This is the difference. Had they introduced this earlier, the number of people who I imagine would be quite considerable, who would go from their 14.99 uh, and pay that extra 6.99 would have been lesser, because the habit building needs to happen.
Mm.
You have to have gotten to that behavior of, and listen, there was YouTube free, there was AWOD of Z, Sony, Hotstar free, right? All of these, Voot was free, right? These
Right.
were already free without anyone paying. Now, people have to have seen the value someone is bringing to be able to then say that, hey, if you start with free, there's always a time and place. I remember when I joined Netflix, there was this whole thing. There were so many articles about the price. They've got the price wrong,
Mm.
right? They've got the price wrong. Everybody is one third the price,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's
Mm.
three times the price of cable. It's, 3x the price of any other platform. And so there is a when of everything, right? And
Yeah.
so many years later, right? I remember, I was part of the team that was fortunate enough to launch the mobile plan. That was the first, yeah, actually, the first step was removing the free trial. People said, how will you remove the free trial? Everyone has a free trial.
Right.
But it's fine. People who value, you're actually deferring it in some level. So I think there is, we must remember three things. Every specific platform's North Star is different. The hangover we have of number of people, which is a very television way, print way, radio, it's a very traditional media way of looking at a business. That's very different from OTT to OTT. AVOD can talk about it. If you're selling advertising dollars, you should speak about your scale because that's what you're selling. But when you're selling subscriptions, you have to speak about the power of your service and content.
Right.
Right? And so now Amazon has a 220 million plus base of video subscribers, right? A considerable base is in India. Now they're going to sell at the back of their scale as well as their content love because they have successful franchises. You do it right in the beginning, you've probably set a wrong rate for your advertisers to begin with. Plus, your ability to charge for subscription will also reduce. So I think the timing makes sense.
So, talking about being patient and understanding, how habits develop, Swati, uh, can we also talk about how all of this is going to change ad formats and how brands are approaching storytelling, right? Say, for example, binge watching, right?
Yeah.
How is that going to affect
Yeah.
advertising?
Yeah, very interesting question, and that's the part I think everyone has to wait and watch on when it comes to, will they have the scrolls in the middle, will they have it in the beginning, will it be, there'll be a lot of this imagination on how they're going to do it. Remember, they are a subscription service also, and if
Mm.
and watch time is going to be critically very, very important. I doubt a consumer giant like Amazon will create an experience that is disruptive to its viewer, its member, its customer. And so I think at one level they will have to balance customer experience and advertiser expectations. At the other end, I think it's also an opportunity for advertisers to be able to build brand campaigns in a very unique way, right? Now let's look at, if it, remember the time IPL started, and now it's become a norm that people are creating 20 seconders and 10 seconders, and the 60 seconder is just gone. Like, I don't know many people making a 60 seconder for a live match anymore, right? They're building their expectations, they're building their campaigns around this, sort of 45-day back-to-back matches tournament, and a campaign, a brand is introduced. Campaigns, and I've taken through multiple brands now into IPL that do their first visibility on the IPL itself. And so brands have been built. And I would imagine an audience which is binging 10 episodes in one of, let's just say a returning season of something that's in its fifth season. Imagine what you can charge, and imagine the impact that an advertiser will be able to see when it gets exposure across 10 episodes of a much loved series. Imagine what that could be. Not only that, look at global advertisers. There are a lot of global advertisers as well. And imagine the exposure they could possibly get in markets that also run a global show that is launched across all the markets. And of course, these markets need to have had an ad supported tier as well. But imagine that opportunity for Amazon and for advertisers, global advertisers overall. So these are
But
the two things that I think are exciting from a advertiser and Amazon perspective for me at this point. But it's a wait and watch on how they balance, revenue making with ad revenue making with viewer experience.
so it's
Totally.
interesting what you said about kind of, not disrupting the OTT experience, right? So, in fact, while we were researching for this particular episode, we found out that Netflix has also kind of made that shift into AVOD in the West. And something that they've been experimenting with is ads that pop up when you pause your content.
It's very unique for that to happen. I think that's actually very, very cool. I'd read about that as well. And I think that here's the thing, right? The first player that does it Let's not forget Netflix also, and we mentioned it earlier, has an ad supported tier in a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
markets outside of India. And that's been fine. It's been doing well for them. In fact, it's a lower priced advertising tier, right? And that's been doing well for them. And again, customer experience and having lived that culture and that, sort of member obsession that that company has for the time that I was there, I'm not surprised that they would come up with unique ways to be able to not disrupt that. Watch time is everything. And I'm sure, as I said, Amazon, the same consumer giant, has already got reels of data across their consumer across platforms already. They
Yeah.
know what they're watching, browsing on all their platforms, what they're reading, what they're listening to, and being able to offer all of it together to an advertiser. I mean, anyone else would be selling it saying, this is what we believe, but Amazon will say, this is what your customer's doing, right?
Actually, this could
And
be
of
an
course,
absolute clincher for Amazon, right? Because I guess to a certain extent, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Swati, but Netflix, the one thing that it's had really going for it so far, and we've spoken about this earlier in the conversation as well, is that first mover advantage. But now, I mean, just, that tech stack that we were talking about, the kind of data that Amazon has access to, like that could potentially really drive Prime ahead in this kind of OTT race, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, they'll have to be careful. Data is, a sensitive thing, but I think in terms of the insights they're sitting on, uh, I would, they definitely have that advantage. And they already, as I said, they already have the network of advertisers and marketers and product companies who are already on their platforms. So they've already seen the impact in one sense, and if you've got a loyal base, magic can happen.
So, Swati, another question that I wanted to ask about, the whole premium experience on Prime, right? Like what you said earlier, even the version that has ads is not really free, right? That is also kind of premium. And then there is the ad-free version, which is almost like another layer of premium, right? So, doesn't this add more pressure on Prime to kind of pay extra attention, right, to the whole premium experience that a customer goes through on their platform?
Yeah, they have to. Look, I think there will be people, look, the people who are complaining are probably the ones who, just don't want to pay more, frankly, right? And
Hmm.
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
absolutely reasonable. Saying, what do you mean? Same experience? Or actually, in one level, offering me a slightly lesser of an experience than I did before. But it goes back to, will you be able to live with ads or will you be able to live with paying more? And that's the choice at one level that Amazon is giving the consumer,
But
right?
what about the
Now,
people who feel like I have been paying, I'm still paying, but
yeah,
I have to watch these ads. I don't want this. And
that's
I don't
okay.
want to
And
pay
I think
more.
the thing will be, fine, you know what, you'll unsubscribe. Let's just say, first of all, you're probably on an annual plan, right?
Mhm.
75-80% of the people are on an annual plan. They will go through the experience of watching ads, because I think they've announced the date, middle of June somewhere,
Yeah.
where this will start happening,
Hmm.
right? And then the question, it's not like it's going to happen the next time you renew. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And so they are, in a sense, so will they stop watching? Will they stop? Because they also lose, remember, the other stuff that came along with their membership, which is Prime,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So they go to another plan which has Prime, and I think Prime has also been tiered. I think Amazon has also been tiered. There's a Prime Lite, etc. There are all these other plans as well for shopping only, right? So they may want to go to that only, and they will experiment. As I said before, it's a bold move of a global consumer company that's saying, we believe in our product so much. And we have a loyal base of people who've been paying for us. We want to make sure that the quality of our content does not get compromised at any cost. Right. And that cost right now, which they're seeing, they've obviously evaluated the trade off from
Rahel, can you
various
hear Swati?
perspectives, is the fact that, yes, I may have to make some customers a little uncomfortable, but I'm hoping that they believe in the portfolio of offering that I have.
Hmm.
And for those who won't, then I think they'll take a decision then. But of course, they've taken a calculated, informed decision. They've probably also seen it across other markets where they've already started the ad supported tier. And of course, they would have done an analysis on that as well. But
Right.
the last point I just want to make is, look, if television as an industry is anything to go by, and that pattern that we've seen, maybe it isn't, but it's important to remember that the 35 to 40-year-old industry of television has been an ad-supported sort of market, right? It's been 75% ad-supported versus subscription, right? And what the reason why it's continuously been growing television, it's still growing, may not be as a part of the overall share of the media and entertainment industry, but it's still growing in absolute terms, is because the prices have been constant and people have been okay with advertising. The pressure has been taken by advertising. It has not been hitting the consumer pocket, right?
Right.
The same goes for all other traditional media as well. But if I look at the other, let's just talk about new customers coming to Amazon. Let's talk about that. They haven't hit 100% penetration, far from it.
True.
Let's look at Spotify. Let's look at YouTube. They're probably in single digits of the number of people who've taken a subscription plan versus those who are okay with advertising. So we're forgetting that there is still a large amount of penetration that Prime Video has to do. And therein, the new customer will come and say, should I take this tier or this tier? One is over 2,000 and one is 14.99. Which one should I take? This one has ads, this one does not have ads. Right? And so I think there's a little bit of that, resetting that's happening. And the great thing about this category is that, one person sets a sort of a benchmark either on price or a tier or a model. And everybody learns from it in the process. So I think we're still in that phase. And I think, we have to pull back on the judgment a little bit, on the pressure a little bit, because, as I said, it's a decade old. A decade isn't enough. I remember even when we launched HD channels, when I was at National Geographic, we initially, if you recall, HD channels was supposed to be an ad-free experience.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? It had to be something that the subscriber had to pay for. And so the HD bundles that were offered for an ad-free experience, after a year and a half, got ads.
Yeah.
They did. And we forget those moments because they seem small. Maybe they didn't hit our pocket as much. Right? Maybe there was no podcast to talk about it at that time. But, and I don't think they lost many subscribers.
Got it. Just to round it up,
Absolutely.
Swati, last question. Who do you think, because this whole third phase is also like an OTT war, right, of a different type. What are the qualities you think that the winner is going to have in this phase?
I think, again, it depends, who's setting, the finish line here, right? So is winning about profitability, is winning about subscribers, is winning about, enough Oscars. Like everyone has different sort of
Coming back
situations.
to your point about North Star.
I think it's just that. So I'm not being diplomatic, and those who know me know that I don't know how to be. But I'm very conscious that each of the big players today, and we know the names of all the players, I think everyone is trying their best. At some level, they have similar customers. In some level, they have unique customers. They have a differentiated, sometimes overlapping content strategy. And I think they're all learning from each other, and that's totally fine. They've got, fabulous leadership at the helm, and they're all consumer obsessed. And I think that is going to be the quality for wherever they need to reach. In all of the finishing lines that I mentioned, that consumer obsession has to be, first and foremost.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings.
A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. Head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the Ken website.
Today's episode was hosted and produced by Rahel Philippos and I, Snigdha Sharma, and it was edited by Rajiv Sien.